Hello and good morning. A warm welcome from my side to our webinar. Today we will talk about global IoT connectivity, and I want to introduce you our key speakers. It's Don Miller and Philip. Could you please go to the next slide? Yes, the next one, please. So I want to introduce you to Don Miller, and a warm welcome, Don, and good morning, because you are from Canada and it's quite early in the morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Matthias. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be a part of the webinar.
Maybe you introduce yourself a little bit, telling us what you're doing in your company. And yeah.
Sure, not a problem. If we just jump to the next slide. So GlobeTracker is a Danish company. Primarily, we have offices in Copenhagen, Iceland, Netherlands, Germany, Singapore, USA, and Canada, of course, where I sit. We primarily have institutional investors that have built up the company. That they're located in Faroe Islands, which is a territory of Denmark. We have operations globally these days, and we have a select amount of partners. We're about 50 people now in the company. When we first started out in the IoT journey, we started off in dry container, but then found quickly that there was a very good niche market in refrigerated container monitoring, which is where we cut our teeth. We do leverage a very flexible architecture relative to having external IT resources and manufacturing resources that we outsource. So we don't actually make the devices ourselves, but we do make our own designs and such, and then those are passed on to contract manufacturing. As you can see on this slide, we have some partners like Ericsson for helping us with roadmaps for global connectivity infrastructure, Magenta, which is a key partner, T-Mobile Austria, that helps us as well with global connectivity, which is obviously the source of this webinar. If you'd go to the next slide. So what our device is really key. So what you'll see is a picture of what is called a smart reefer. So that's a refrigerated container, and we install an IoT device gateway in that container in the control box on the outside. And the key to that is we interface to the controller, which is more or less a computer that takes the diagnostics from the cooling engine. So we monitor all the parameters of the cooling engine. And then separate to that, we have a couple of other IoT gateways like BLE, Bluetooth Low Energy, and LoRa that we leverage to communicate to sensors inside and outside the container on top of that. Part of the ROI and the features and benefits include better asset utilization, improved M&R processes, and we automate a lot of maintenance and repair process, real-time visibility, which is of course what everyone's looking for, as well as temperature monitoring for compliance, and remote control of the operation of the reefer. So we could change set points remotely from anywhere in the world. And next slide. So just a little glimpse of the deployments here, and I'll just highlight a couple. As you'll see some big bubbles in Asia. We do have a lot of manufacturing activity going on. So the majority of the containers, the refrigerated containers, when they're made new, are made in China. And we have teams on the ground trained on installation. We use the BLE feature within the suite of radios on the device to actually pair the unit to the container. So that's the IoT matching. And we actually currently now have 42 installation sites globally where we install containers on behalf of our customers. And the pairing app syncs up with the database, and we monitor the GPS, the cellular position, signal strength, and of course the data coming in to make sure it's sound. And it all hits as soon as it hits the server, it automatically updates the app and lets you know that the installations were successful. For us, that's really key in a global deployment because you need accuracy and you need speed in order to really get the paired asset to communicate properly and not have any mistakes in the field. And next slide. Some of our customers and partners we highlighted before. Obviously, CIMC is a big one for us. They're the #1 producer of containers in the world. So as I was mentioning earlier, it's helped us leverage on the ground activities in China. where we have partnerships with them so that we can get installations done at also at a reasonable cost. One of the other ones I'd like to highlight is WMS, Wireless Maritime Services. So they are the leader in cruise ship connectivity at sea, and we've leveraged their expertise to build us both a mobile and a permanent solution for monitoring refrigerated containers at sea using 4G LTE cell towers. Next slide. And of course, the biggest news that hit Globe Trekker back in 2019, we announced it around June 1st, was the deployment of the full fleet for Hapag-Lloyd. Now, Hapag-Lloyd is the number 5 container shipping line in the world. They're German. They're very well run and highly profitable. And they represent approximately 7% of the global fleet. It might be a little more now because they've, since this announcement, which was for 100,000 devices, they've now increased to 150,000. So it's there's a big increase there due to obviously the busy sector and of course cold chain, coronavirus, everything just kind of hitting all at once. It's really accelerated this development. Key partners, obviously T-Mobile Austria, Magenta, really key in securing this and us going in together as partners to show Hapag-Lloyd the level of connectivity we had globally, which was really key in the decision-making process. And next.
Okay, thank you very much, Don. And maybe let's jump to the next slide later. So let's go back to Don's slides, because I want to raise a question for you. Globe Trekker is a partner for us, very important partner. You are distributing your containers all over the world, or Hapag-Lloyd is doing that. So for a question for you, what was important for your network technology choice when it came to this use case?
Well, our use case is global, and the one of the biggest issues was trying to get connectivity all over the world that would be adequate enough for Hapag-Lloyd's needs. And of course, there are challenges with that, and challenges with networks communicating and so on. And I think what we were really liked about T-Mobile Austria and Magenta in particular was that not only being the largest European telecom operator, but also having a lot of owned infrastructure in other countries was really key for us, because if there are problems that you need to diagnose, we do get resolutions a lot more quickly because you guys own the infrastructure on the ground in those places. So that's been key. We have found several places that, you know, we're having trouble with installations, for example, because a particular terminal or depot doesn't have good cellular connectivity. So in some cases, we've had to move the installation location maybe 100 yards, maybe 50 yards, just to get a better communication cycle so that we could do these installations. But really what was key was these containers transiting to, you know, 140 plus countries in general, and being able to get data back that's solid and actionable. I think this is where we see the relationship really having taken hold. Obviously, before you do any of these deployments, you know, making sure you have connectivity globally is key. So we do a lot of trade lane testing ahead of time to make sure that we're monitoring exactly where and when there are outages, and if we can affect those in any way in a positive form.
Okay. Thank you very much, Don, for giving us insights into your company. Again, Don is the officer for the CSO, so for sales and marketing responsible. It's a Canadian-based company. So how late is it in Canada right now, where you are placed?
No, we're actually Danish-based, but yeah, in Canada here it's just a little after 4 in the morning. Yeah. So
thank you again for waking up that early.
Work all the time, no problem at all.
And I also want to introduce Alec, because I forgot it before. So Alec Esati is the CEO of an Austrian-based company. So he is sitting in Europe, in Austria. Maybe you say a few words about your person, and later we talk about the use case.
Yeah, hello everybody. Also a warm welcome from my side. Matthias, thanks for being a part of this webinar. My name is Alec Esati. I'm the founder of Slog. Founded Slog 4 years ago, so we are still a startup, scale up, and work together very successfully with Magenta and Telekom Germany as being one of our very important partners, not just in terms of connectivity, but also in terms of system integration.
Thank you, Alec, and we hear you later. And it's me, Matthias Fiegel. I'm taking care on the international IoT business of Deutsche Telekom. And now I want to tell you something about the technology, and later on, Alec will tell about his specific use case. Now I will step into the importance of wireless technology and the next step. You all know that it started quite early, and really it started 1958 with the 1G technology. No one can remember on that because it was just for a few users, overall about 10,000 users. So starting point was car telephony, only telephony was possible. Then we came to 2G in the 90s, and some of us had already some cellular phones, but it was also that we just did calls and sent SMS, but limited emails and no data transfer was possible. With 3G then, it stepped in that we had UMTS, and we started to communicate also via mobile internet. And with 4G and the smartphones, we have now the freedom to communicate, to send SMS, and to mobile broadband via our terminals, and it's very useful. We can do video streaming and all that stuff which is necessary. And now we step into the next technology, and the next technology is 5G, where everything is communicating. This is a bridging technology where it bridges human with machines, and machines start to talking to each other. So it's a very, very important step. We digitalize our world with 5G. And it's for Deutsche Telekom, 5G is no generic definition. There is no generic definition available. And please jump to the next slide. For Deutsche Telekom, we have our own view on 5G, and our view on 5G is that 5G is a mixture of fixed wireless access. It's fixed mobile conversion included. Then newer technologies or newer parts of these technologies are coming up, like network slicing or edge computing. Global connectivity will be or is a part of 5G, and there is a specific standard there. It's called 1M2M standard, and we see it also as part of the 5G technology. And last but not least, in 5G, there are some important IoT technology included. We as Deutsche Telekom see it as a part of 5G. The one is Narrowband Internet of Things technology, and the other technology is LTM technology. It's all based on 3GPP standard, which is very important when it comes to specification. It's really important that we have this standard, and 5G is a part of it, or based on this 3GPP. On the next slide, I want to compare the technologies. I want to compare LTE with LTM and Narrowband IoT. The so-called low power wide area technologies, LTM and Narrowband IoT. These are the IoT technologies. And if you see, compare it on the mobility side, so moving around is with LTM and LTE easy possible. It sometimes makes problems if you use the Narrowband IoT and having this in a tracker, and the tracker is moving around. Data rates, you can see that Narrowband IoT are supporting on small data rates, so you can do 250 kilobytes per second. With LTM, we have about 1 megabyte per second, and with LTM, we see that we have much higher transfer data rates as the other technologies. Latency with LTE, we have very low latency, below 50 milliseconds, increasing with LTM up to 1 second. And with Narrowband IoT, there is no real-time monitoring, for example, possible, because we do have up to 10 seconds latency. The average is around 1 to 3 seconds latency, and then this makes it not usable for real-time monitoring, for example. But the indoor penetration with Narrowband IoT is really high. If you have indoor penetration with for sure you have it with LTE in the normal house, it's no problem. With LTM, you have it in the ground floor as well. So in the cellar, you get also with LTM the proper connection. And with Narrowband IoT, you get connection also 2 or 3 stages below the ground. So it's quite good indoor coverage for everything, and for some special use cases like smart metering, it absolutely makes sense that you use Narrowband IoT. The limitation on Narrowband IoT is, on the other hand, that we do not have SMS or voice for this technology, which is possible with LTM and which is supported by LTE, but Narrowband IoT is no technology for calls or SMS. But when it comes to battery lifetime, LTE do have low battery lifetime, and Narrowband IoT, on the other hand, have got maximum battery lifetime. The technology itself is not consuming that much power, so the technology Narrowband IoT is often used for battery-powered devices. And the other very important advantage on Narrowband IoT is that the modules, the target costs of the modules are quite smaller as it is with LTE. So below €5, about €5, makes Narrowband IoT very, very cheap technology. And on the other hand, the battery is the advantage, and the big or high indoor coverage as well. So yeah, that's the technology. And now I have a question for you, the audience. And this question is around the technology. And which connectivity technology do you plan for your next IoT project? Do you plan classic network technology like 2G, 4G, or 5G, low power wide area network like Narrowband IoT and LTM, or others, or you're currently not sure? So please vote. You get 1 minute from now on for this vote. So please vote and giving us insights into your project. Alec, what do you think will be the outcome of this quick poll of this question? Who will win? Which technology? We cannot hear you.
So now,
Yeah.
now it should work. You should hear me again. No, I think that that the low power wide area network technology will win, I guess. Let's see.
Okay. And what do you think, Don?
Well, in our deployment, we use the classic network technology because we are global, and we at the time needed so the 4G LTE we have is a 4G globally certified with a 3G 2G backhaul. But I can see now that we're getting forever closer on good roaming coverage on NB-IoT and LTE-M. So my guess would be low power wide area network.
Okay, great. And what is the outcome, Philip? Please. Oh, interesting, interesting. High interest on low power wide area network. Yeah, it's the future, and I fully understand this answer because a lot of providers shutting down 2G technology, and therefore it absolutely makes sense that you are looking into low power wide area. The coverage is in Europe and US already available. If you are want to have it on a global scale, you need to deal with different modules, I would say. Okay, thank you very much for answering this question. And let's look into the details of the technology. And first of all, I want to introduce you LTM. LTM is a technology for a wide range of new IoT applications. It should replace 2G and 3G technology, and it's the alternative to narrowband IoT and 5G ready. So I want to show you some use cases you can fulfill with LTM. We can see on the next slide. The use cases are really different. And one of the use cases, for example, is wearables or white goods like oven or fridge. Then telematics, they often use it for with LTM. Traveling around makes sense with LTM. Then we have security calls and live tracking and health monitoring. Health monitoring is very important. For example, elderly care. The LTM is used for the base station in a household, and this base station is connected to sensors in the kitchen, in the bathroom, in the toilet to monitor the status of the older people to see if they are falling, if they still are lying in the bed. So health monitoring is quite important for or this technology is quite important for health monitoring because it's cheap and also high bandwidth available. And the most important is for this use case, the deep indoor penetration with LTM. Then often LTM is used for smart metering. Therefore, we can also use Narrowband IoT and tracking of the different goods like containers, pallets, waste bins who are traveling around. LTM has the advantage of higher availability and bandwidth data rates, whereas Narrowband IoT do have the advantage of long battery life. And now we step into the next slide where I want to show you Narrowband IoT. Narrowband IoT is as well a low power wide area network technology and is do support a wide range of mobile devices. It's especially for indoor applications and for indoor devices. But you always be aware that the bandwidth is limited to 200 kilobytes per second, and so narrowband IoT is just for transmitting low data rate. But a lot of different use cases are possible with narrowband IoT. And we do have, for example, parking is one of the use cases. On the next page, please. And we also have smart waste. We will hear more about smart waste from Alec, and smart building. So putting temperature sensors into a building causes often a lot of troubles because there is no power supply and we need to build a power supply. With narrowband IoT, no power supply is necessary because you place a sensor somewhere and the device is powered by a battery, and the battery will stay for, we always say, 5 to 7 years without changing it. It always depends on the how often you transmit data. So you can measure a lot of things like humidity, monitoring of alarm system, monitoring of light, so a lot of things in smart buildings. But it's also used for tracking of goods, and not traveling around the goods, just traveling, and the device do not send data. But if the device is standing still, is sending data. Also for smart lighting or for construction machines is often used. And one of the most important use cases here is for sure smart metering. This technology is often used for water meters or energy meters. Narrowband IoT is focusing on battery-powered use cases. The technology itself is based on LTE and can be rolled out just with a software update in the LTE networks. So therefore, it's easy. Yeah, Narrowband IoT overall, again, low power, deep indoor, and low device costs. Yeah, that's the technology itself. And now I want to introduce, or not me want to introduce, Alec want to show you more about his company and his use case based on smart waste. And I now hand over to Alec. Alec, please tell us more about SLOC and what you're doing.
So, Matthias, thanks. As I mentioned before, I'm the founder of SLOC. SLOC is now 4 years old. Maybe we can switch to the next slide, please. We are located here in Graz, in Austria, 14 people. And we are basically developing smart devices for various industrial IoT use cases. So we have a base technology where we set upon all the use cases. And one of our most important use cases now is waste management. So as Matthias mentioned, smart waste. So what we developed is a small sensor. So maybe you can see here what the sensor looks like. And this sensor is equipped into a trash bin, no matter if it's a small trash bin for households or if it's a bigger one for glass or for carton or paper. And we measure various information like the fill level for sure, also the lid state position, if it's opened or closed, the lid opening. So when people throw something into the trash bin, if we install our sensor at an industry enterprise, we can measure the temperature to avoid or to provide fire warnings and avoid any kind of fire. And we also identify movement patterns, so we can say whether the trash bin was moved from one location to the other one. And that's all the information we identify with our sensor. And now when it comes to trash bin, it's very important to have a connectivity everywhere, which means also indoor coverage, like Matthias mentioned before, because very often you find the trash bins in the cellars of a building. Or when it comes to Austria, we equip trash bins close to ski resorts where you have a lot of people throwing glass or waste into the trash bin during the winter season, but not in the summer season. So it's very important to really understand what is the fill level of the trash bin, and then based on these fill levels, we start a dynamic route planning every morning for the truck driver, so that the truck driver just goes to the trash bins that are really full and need to be emptied, and avoid any other truck drives. So try to reduce the number of truck drives and save CO2 and optimize this process of emptying the trash bins. Other use cases that we work on are a little bit similar to what Don does, but not globally, but just, let's say, for example, within Germany. So we do cold chain monitoring for frozen goods in specific containers where they are transported from the warehouse to the point of sale, and try to check whether the container is opened or not, and if the cold chain is monitored, and if the container is broken or handled the right way by the logistics service provider. So that is something we do as well. And also, for example, we track forklifts. So the big companies like, I don't know, automotive industry like Daimler or Porsche, they have big forklift fleets, and they need to understand if the forklift is, how often the forklift is used, or if it's loaded or unloaded. Yeah, so get a productivity analysis of the forklift fleet. And there we also developed a smart device that you can install on the forklift, and that gives you immediately the whole information about the productivity of this single forklift. And so please switch to the next slide. As you can see, our solution mainly consists of three components. So one is the device itself, and also we are recognized as a hardware company very often. Our main competence also is in the firmware, so the software, the algorithms on the device itself. And then we have connectivity, where the data are transferred from the device into our device management. Within this device management, we can provide firmware updates over the air, change settings over the air. So it's a very comfortable tool for the customer to set up different parameters. And then we have the business intelligence tool. So for example, based on the fill level of the trash bins, we do dynamic route planning every night for all our customers, the waste management companies, and so that the truck driver in the morning when he starts his truck can get his actual route for this day on his tablet that is inside the truck, and we navigate him from one trash bin to the next one, and trying just to empty the full trash bins. So please to the next slide. Yeah, and now when it comes to our base technology, as I mentioned before, as we have a lot of onboard intelligence and AI-based algorithm in our firmware. But what Matthias already mentioned, and what's extremely important for us, is the connectivity. And for our smart waste, our smart trash bin use case, we use Narrowband Iot. Why do we do this? Because for us, it's extremely important to have indoor coverage, because the trash bin is inside for example, inside the cellar. Then also we are battery powered, so we need a long battery life. So our customers want a battery life of 5 or more years when we measure the fill level once a day. So this is very important. So the right technology for this use case for us was Narrowband Iot. And we have already equipped around 15,000 trash bins now in the past 2 years since we are on the market, in Germany, in Austria, Switzerland. So we are basically right now focusing on the German-speaking countries, now to the first projects in the Netherlands. So for us, it's always very important to have a Narrowband Iot network available there, and Magenta is here the right partner for us. And CAT-M we also use, for example, for this use case for the forklift fleet, because there we produce much more data than for the trash bin, because the forklift is moved every day, every hour, and you need this data more or less online. So that's why here Narrowband Iot in terms of data transmission is not the best technology, but it's CAT-M. So based on the use case, as you see, we use the right connectivity technology for the specific use case. And also, as I mentioned before, the battery power is extremely important to us. We're really trying to understand how often do we need to transfer the data, which kind of data, what is the size of the data packages, and then we decide which technology is the right one. Yeah, so Matthias, that's basically what Slock does so far, and
okay,
back to you.
Thank you very much for explaining what you're doing. Very interesting, because you're using exactly what Narrowband Iot stands for. You told us that your battery lifetime is about 5 years, 5 to 7 years, something like that. But how big is them? Because if you want to offer 5 to 7 year battery lifetime, then you need to have a battery like 1 meter by 1 meter. Or how big is your slug? How do you mount it on the trash bin if it's that big? What's about
Yeah, I
the
mean
battery size?
this is the slug trash bin. So you see it's actually like the size of a smartphone, and we have inside two battery cells. Yeah, so it's quite small. We need to be small because the smaller trash bins are not really big. So one of the requirements of our customers, the waste management company, was to develop a very small sensor. So you can see here with these two batteries, we can get a battery lifetime of 5 to 7 years if we measure the fill level once a day and transfer it once a day. But that's only possible with Narrowband IoT. If we would use another connectivity technology, that wouldn't be possible. So that's why Narrowband IoT is extremely important for this specific use case.
Okay, so you're sending data quite not very often, just once a day, and only a few bytes.
A few bytes. We are just sending a few bytes, like a fill level, the temperature. So it's just a few bytes every day. So 23 hours and 55 minutes, we do not do anything. We are in a sleep mode with our sensor, and then we wake up in the night, and then we measure the fill level, get all the information that we need set up, and then transfer it to our device management.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I can remember on our project because you asked us quite early in the development of low power technologies and developed the device together with us. We developed our network and have been one of the front runners in the network, and you in parallel developed the device. And now you have one of the biggest rollouts in Europe on smart waste. So congratulations to that. It's really well done, I need to say.
Thank you very much, Matthias.
You're welcome. On the other hand, it's Don. How are you dealing with this battery lifetime? Because I think you send more often these data. What about your battery pack? How big is it?
We're fortunate to obviously be able to we take energy from the refrigerated container when it's powered. So we've gone with a rechargeable solution, right? So as they plug in the refrigerated container, it charges our battery, and then that battery will last. We give it about 180 reports. So it could be once a day for 6 months, but it's configurable by the customer. If they want it quicker, then we'll supply that much on battery power. What's also interesting about that is that we take the battery power and we can use it to communicate to the sensors, because the sensors are actually LoRa based, and so we communicate to the sensors inside the cargo space. And that's LoRa was a technology we picked because it penetrates through the wall of the container to get the connectivity that we need to be able to go anywhere inside the box. And this is a small temperature sensor that you basically power on, and then you put it in the pallet or box, and then it has an additional probe entry if you want to put it inside fruit and such. So this would be something that the customer would enter and be able to pair to the container, and so we would enable the shipping line to have customers that can go at the pallet level. This is important for our customers, like the fruit carriers like Dole, for example, would use something like this, or even just anyone in shipping pharmaceuticals or other types of cargo that wanted to get granular temperature monitoring. One thing with refrigerated containers is there's one supply air and then there's one return air. What this offers is that we could put almost one per pallet, and if you wanted to have a full visibility of every single pallet level temperature inside a container.
Okay, interesting. And as far as I can remember, you're also comparing technologies. So how can I get the temperature of the container when I'm on the Atlantic? Because the containers are shipped via the Atlantic. So how can I get the temperature then?
Well, the architecture would be that sensor to the device. The device is now a gateway that then goes to the wireless maritime services system, which is basically what they call a picocell, or a cell tower that they actually put on the vessel itself. And so they would collect all the information above and below deck for the boxes. And on the 4G LTE, it runs about 700 megahertz. So the penetration into the cargo holds is really essential here to be able to get the signals out. So the answer is we are already providing for several shipping lines real-time data at sea. And when I say real-time, latency is less than 15 minutes.
That's great. That's great. So it's a mixture of different technology. In the middle of it, it's 2G and network operators, 2G and 3G, 4G. But on the other hand, for the communication in the container, you're using LoRaWAN, so also very interesting technology, low power technology. And on the other hand, on the sea, so when you're on Atlantic, for the uplink, you use then satellite. So
Correct.
a mixture of different, very interesting technologies. And you already explained it. You also had a big rollout with 100,000 containers, and now you have 150,000 containers globally. It's in comparing to SLOC, it's more local, more in Europe, where the technology Narrowband IoT is available. On the other hand, it's your company, you did a global rollout, really global, also in Vietnam and other countries available. And therefore, it's necessary that you're using a more common technology and not the newest technology.
Yeah, you know, the way it's happened is obviously we use the classic model of the radios, as you mentioned earlier, just because for the immediate use case, they wanted to guarantee that we would have connectivity. NB-IoT, Cat-M hadn't really gotten to the global roaming yet. And if you were looking at coverage maps, it's not fully there yet, but I expect in the next several months to under a year, it will be. So, you know, it's now is the time to be working on those devices. Relative to our deployments, we have the 100,000 plus, 150,000 with Hapag-Lloyd, but we also have now 15 other shipping lines under contract. So we are in current backlog of almost close to 200,000 devices that we have to deliver by the end of 2022. So it's very, very aggressive right now, but I think it's just case of a market moving, right? And if I look back at Alex's company, when we signed Hapag-Lloyd, we were 14 people. So he's at the right size to get the next jump.
Yeah, that's great. Good news that you increase your device, the number of devices. It's also good for us.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
expect that by the end of 22, again, with global chip shortage and all of that being solved, and we're taking those steps, that we will get to a total deployed number of somewhere around close to 300,000 units.
Great, good news, good news. Guys, thank you very much for this discussion. We will discuss some questions later on. But now I want to raise a question for the audience again. And it's a small question, but quite important. The question is, how far is your IoT project already developed? You heard some good use cases, and they have given you some ideas. The answers could be you have already an idea, you're in the middle of the project, or you already closed the project. So coming back to you guys, Don, what do you think is important developing a project? What should you think first if you start having an idea on a project?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier that making sure if you're doing the IoT project that you're certainly looking at what the connectivity looks like, depending on your chip choice, right? Whatever, whether it's narrowband IoT, whether it's 4G, whatever it is that you're going to use, make sure that it meets the use case and of course the power requirements. For us on the global scale, there was a couple of things we had to consider as well, is that there is some regulatory having to do with countries and certifications. And if you are doing more of a global rollout, you need to really pay attention to these and make sure that your devices are certified to roam in that country. There are several countries in the world that are still there's still difficulties. Brazil would be one, Egypt's another. There's certifications required in Japan, Singapore, other areas. So I think, you know, in general, if you're deploying and it's sitting there, not a non-transiting asset, but one that's actually sitting in the country proper, you'll actually need more certifications for those types of rollouts.
Okay, okay. Philip, maybe you give us the result of this question. Yeah, that's the next slide. Yeah, okay. In the middle of a project, very interesting. For the audience, you know that we can help you on developing your project. We believe, or we see, that it is important to raise the question of the connectivity of the technology itself quite early, involve us in the IT process quite early, because it could sometimes be a problem then if you just bring in connectivity in a very late stage of a project. So for those who are voted in the middle of the project, it should be it's time to involve the operator or the technology, the wireless technology provider now. Okay, thank you very much for that. I want to present you some further aspects you need to consider during these projects. And I split it into 6 different columns. The first is local or global. As we had this discussion, Alec is more local and taking care on Europe, or is looking into Europe. Don is doing global rollout. So you should be aware first, if you want to roll out your device, your solution globally, or you just want to have it locally, because this defines technology and this defines also the device. Then network technology. Which network technology you want to use for your project? That was the reason why I explained it so long about the battery lifetime, about data transmission, about costs of devices. It's important that you define which technology you want to use for your use case, battery power, high data volume, and so on. We can help you on that. It's also that there is LoRa available. LoRa is a technology also low power. The coverage is not that big, but for specific use cases in some specific area, as Don is using it for container, it absolutely makes sense that you use LoRa, or for indoor, Bluetooth is often the technology of choice. Then a service portal. A service portal means that you can manage your SIM card, you can manage your devices remotely, and this is quite important. If you do a mass rollout, more than 50,000 or 10,000 devices, it's important that you can manage it, that you can manage the device, you can manage the SIM cards via an GUI, because these SIM cards need to be managed. Sometimes they are traveling around the world, and someone is putting out the SIM card, and therefore it's important that you do fraud management, that you have you have access to the SIM card itself. And then we have the part of the security, and security, it's also as normal very important for you. It's that the 3GPP standard, the network technology itself, is bringing a lot of security into your project, because it's a security standard. It's included in the standard of 5G. And therefore you get it with the technology. But on top of it, it's important that you are using additional security technology. We are offering VPNs, APNs, OpenVPN. We are offering redundancy. We are also using radius forwarding. Some buzzwords you have here, but it's important, if you look into security, do it wise and define it really straightforward. Otherwise, you're getting in troubles. You are not interested that someone is hacking or, for example, the LOMO, if you have a SIM card in it of a customer of you. So it's important that you have security. Then the rate plan. The rate plan is on top of the SIM card, on top of the portal. You are defining a commercial model, a pay per use, a lifetime fee, or a pooling variant. It's depending on what use case you want to implement, and how many data you are using, or how many SMS you are sending, or if you need a voice support there. The rate plan is depending, and at Deutsche Telekom, we are taking care that the rate plan is the right rate plan for you. And you wouldn't believe, but with the SIM cards, there are different technologies, different SIM cards available, and different standards. So there are simple 2FF, 3FF, and 4FF SIM cards, but there are also SIM chips available. The chips you can mount on the device itself and cannot be disconnected with the device. This is available, or also called eSIM functionalities, so that you can change provider, for example, not very easy, but you can change it. If you quit the contract with the provider, you can change it then. Can be used for different other purposes as well. And
Matthias,
last but not,
sorry,
yes.
I could say one thing about the SIMs in our rollout is if you're looking at global projects, it doesn't hurt to put a second SIM slot in your device. It probably could be useful. You may find it because depending on the roaming plan, there's certain countries that are just not participating in these plans. And if you end up with a country like that and you need to put a local SIM in as a backup, that's sometimes useful. The second thing is we're seeing the emergence of communication at sea. So if you ever think that your device is going to end up on a container in the middle of the ocean, it might be useful to have that secondary SIM as something that you can offer, because some of the local networks that are provided, they may not have the roaming on your particular partner, and that may take a while. So if they had their own SIM, then you could work with the vessel operator to put that SIM in and then have the roaming done that way. I mean, that we see that as the future, as a fully connected supply chain that way.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And again, it's important involving the network operator quite early, because we can help you on defining one SIM, two SIM, price-wise, device. So it's important that we talk quite early about connectivity itself. But thank you, Don. And as I said, last but not least, it's the device itself. It's depending on if you want to have it battery powered, and how big, is it possible that should it be water resistant, which technology. And we have a quite good tool, a quite interesting tool developed for our customers, where you can do a virtual configuration of your device. So you define it virtually first on your computer. It takes you just 1 hour, and then you see, and then you can change the parameters again, and then you see a device available which could help you defining the final device. So therefore, the development of a device, the time for development of a device is shortened by 3 to 6 months only by using this virtual configuration tool. It's nice tool, and you should try it out. We offer it to our customers. Okay, so further aspects are done. This is the story I wanted to tell you again about technology, what further aspects should be considered. And now I want to ask you, Alec, what do you think are the most important aspects beside the network technology when it comes to your use cases, your company?
So basically, what we found out when we talk to customers, especially I would say here in the German-speaking countries, you always focus a lot on technology, And in my opinion, it's very important to first understand what is the use case and what is the return on investment. So why do you do this? And I think, in my opinion, people should spend more time before really make a deep dive into technology and connectivity and everything to understand what is the use case for, what they want to do, how do they want to optimize their business processes, and what is the return on investment, what do they expect from that. Yeah, and we see this very much in smart ways. So basically, because when you have different stakeholders like municipalities, for example, they mainly look on improving quality, so avoid trash bins that are not emptied, and that you have a lot of waste around the trash bin. And when it comes to the waste management company, they want to optimize the process. They want to avoid truck drives that are not necessary. And so it's extremely important to understand in the beginning of a project, what is the target? What are you aiming for? So that's basically what we found out when it comes to IoT projects. And then once you understand this, you can really, with your tool, especially a tool I like very much, Matthias, as you mentioned before, the IoT Solution Optimizer, where you can really configure your device and everything you need around that. So that's what I would suggest to do.
Okay, thank you very much, Alec. I have seen that there are some questions in our question part, and now I will come to this question, answering the question. Some countries do not allow permanent roaming by outside mobile operators. How does DT solve the issue with permanent roaming in e.g. China, Turkey, US, EAE? Yeah, that's quite simple by having partners. So it's important in this world, if you want to offer global connectivity, you need to deal with your local partners. In some countries, this is possible, like in China, and you wouldn't believe it, but we are cooperating with China Telecom in China, for example. In other countries, that's not very easy possible, like in Turkey, because they prohibited that. But we are also looking for these countries. And in Brazil, we are also doing a cooperation with a local provider there. So it's possible via Deutsche Telekom. And on the other hand, we are flexible enough with our SIM management platform and our partner Ericsson that we are doing localization in the different countries. So you are having one portal, but getting connectivity in Europe, US, but also in Brazil with this one portal. Hopefully, this answers your question.
I would just add, yes,
yes,
the dual SIM in this case does help, but you do have to contact local government and submit devices for certification locally as well. You know, obviously it becomes difficult because you'd like to get a critical mass of units before you get there, but because these things do cost money. But with a local SIM, that's a government SIM or other, you can get into the country. They just have to certify your device. Sometimes they need samples, sometimes they don't. But in some cases, even the cellular chipset has its own certifications to pass in certain countries.
Okay, thanks. Then there is another question. When will Tmoa support Narrowband IoT 2 with higher bandwidth support? So far, it's not on our roadmap, but we are looking into it. And currently, the development of Narrowband IoT or the global rollouts on Narrowband IoT are not that further that we are thinking to roll out another one. We are currently concentrating on LTM and try to get it available in all our subsidiaries, but not on Narrowband IoT 2. Okay, I will answer only one last question, and this is any use case for Sigfox. Yeah, Sigfox is another technology we should mention beside LoRa and Narrowband IoT. Sigfox is also a low power technology. Use cases are really a lot for Sigfox, no specific use case. The it's another technology which can be used for rollouts. The thing with Sigfox is that the rollouts, global rollouts, are not really available on that. We will see what will happen in the future. But 2G to 4G are much more advanced, and LTM and Narrowband IoT will have this also in the near future. I should come to an end because 1 hour is already passed. Again, I want to thank you, Alec, for your presentation, and also you, especially Don, for waking up this early and being part of our webinar. Thank you very much to you guys. Good luck for the further rollouts. It's always a pleasure talking to you, talking to our partners, and it's really a partnership. Thank you very much for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's always interesting that you are giving us feedback on your webinar. We want to learn from you what we can do better, and if you liked it, so please give us a short feedback. With the QR code, you can drop us some messages. If you want to contact us for Narrowband IoT and LTM or help in the project with devices, let me know. I'm available. I will answer your questions. You can reach me by email or also by phone. Thank you very much for listening to us, and hopefully you join our next webinar, which will come up in September, October. Thank you very much and have a good day. Goodbye.